Hello there and welcome back to the Deep Voice channel. I've got something a little bit different today. What I'm going to be talking about today is Korean cinema, and specifically 4 titles from the horror thriller genre which I know you're going to love. So, without further ado, let's go deep and talk about Korean cinema. In my honest opinion, South Korean cinema leads the way in terms of overall quality and attention to detail. Most notably with directors such as Bong Joon-ho and his much-known Parasite, and Park Chan-wook with Oldboy. Korean films are often characterized by realistic dialogue, sublime acting performances, and a penchant to include grey characters rather than black and white ones. Protagonists are anything but superhuman, oftentimes deeply flawed and tragic, with an unparalleled sense of drive, which pushes them to make morally reprehensible decisions without a care for consequence. But it is this undying drive which connects us with the characters, whether alluding to the protection of others, a desperate search for lost ones, or seeking vengeance at any cost at all. South Korean thrillers often portray police brutality and incompetence, a particularly big issue in the country during the 1980s. Although obviously a serious issue, this often adds to the humour in South Korean films where moments of absurdity and light relief can be found. South Korean cinema is also frequently genre-bending, blending humour with tragedy, scenes of sheer terror, and moments of the serene, which showcase the natural beauties of South Korean nature with landscapes and cityscapes. Up first on this list is 2010's I Saw the Devil, written and directed by Kim Jee-woon and starring Lee Byung-hun and Choi Min-sik. This movie is fantastic, and the premise is that a special agent finds out that his partner has been killed and very early on finds out who is responsible. However, this is by no means the end of this cat and mouse story. So, this film is well directed, beautifully shot, and well written, and the protagonist in this film is excellent. A grey character. He has both positive and negative sides to his personality. The antagonist is very well played here to the point where you hate this character, which is intentional. And violence is enacted on the antagonist, which is very satisfying to see on camera. And this idea that both characters are extremely driven, their parallels being that they're driven by an insatiable hunger for violence, keeps the audience captivated throughout. This is very tense, on the edge of your seat style filmmaking. And the kill scenes in this film are ridiculously brutal, graphic, visceral. The scenes are so abrupt, quick, and realistic that they are, in fact, very disturbing. There are scenes in this film that are shot in the Seoul cityscape. They are wonderful to look at. The visuals in this film are great. The acting around the board, fantastic. The effects, the practical effects in the violent moments, fantastic looking. The attention to detail in each shot, unbelievable. There are some transitions that, along with the music in this film, are fantastic. And this film needs to be watched. It's not higher on this list for me because it's a little bit more predictable than the other titles I'll be talking about. But nevertheless, this film is great and you should go and watch it. Up next is 2016's The Wailing, written and directed by Hong-jin and starring Kwak Do-won. This movie is fantastic. The premise is that a village has a new arrival as a resident, and a sickness is starting to spread throughout the village, and people are starting to notice. This film looks fantastic because this showcases the South Korean natural landscape, the mountainous region, the lush green forests. It looks so gorgeous. And all the while, this is being offset by the horrors of what's happening on screen. Let me say first and foremost that the protagonist performance in this is sublime. And while I'm on this acting, the child actor, who is very prevalent in the scenes in this film, is so good. This is one of the things I usually pick out quite early on, whether a child actor can deliver a performance that seems feasible and realistic. She does that excellently here. This film is so well acted around the board, and I want to say that the characters react so realistically to the dangers and horrors that present themselves in this film. People scream, people run, they don't decide, I'm going to go out as a one-man army and investigate this thing I may or may not have seen. People are scared in this film, and it is very realistic. And at the same time, the dialogue in just normal scenes without the horror is so realistic. It's how you would talk to a family member, a colleague. You know, they are calling each other names and things. This is something very prevalent in South Korean cinema. I always find the dialogue to be the most realistic out of any type of cinema. So the performance is great. The practical effects in this, second to none. The sickness as it spreads will leave boils and horrible skin deformities. So these are all very well shown on screen. The film opens with a quote from the Bible. There are themes of religion in here, and throughout Christianity, Buddhism, it all comes in here. But this film is very well shot, very well directed, and there is a scene that I absolutely love set in a police station. There are two police officers. They witness something which would scare anyone, and they react accordingly. They are petrified. They don't go out to investigate this. They basically just sit there in horror. And this, to me, was what basically set it apart from other films, just the realism. It's creepy, it's tense, the ending is dark but satisfying. The performance around the board great, and the visuals fantastic. Go and watch this film. 2008's The Chaser is next on this list, written and directed by Hong-jin, who also written and directed The Wailing. This film's premise is very similar to I Saw the Devil, also on this list. And the premise is that a disgraced ex-police officer is now running a prostitution ring, and one of his working women goes missing. And just like in I Saw the Devil, he finds out quite early on who is responsible, and things just continue from there. There are many funny moments in this film, regardless of how dark it is, and most of this revolves around the fact that the people who are surrounding the protagonist are, let's just face it, incompetent. Although driven, a lot of them aren't very intelligent, and this becomes apparent as the film progresses. The performance of the protagonist in this film is so realistic. The dialogue, as we've said with all Korean films, realistic, completely hilarious at times. The antagonist is almost a statue in terms of no emotion, a complete definition of a psychopath, and the scenes in this that have violence are also very brutal, very quick, very abrupt. The ending to this film is one of the most tense I've ever seen. The build up, the music, everything is so dramatic. And I feel like this is a level above I Am the Devil in terms of it being a cat and mouse game with a very similar premise. I think nearly every aspect I can think of is maybe a little level above I Saw the Devil here. And a lot of it comes down to the performances. The characters are believable. They are, you know, deep and complex. And the shots in this are also beautiful. A lot of this is set in the hilly landscapes in Seoul, cityscapes, and people react so realistically. They run out of breath, they can't run forever, they shout abuse at each other. It's glorious. It's so fun. It's a fun watch. It's funny at times. It's dark. It's tragic. It has everything in this film. It's up there. It's one of the best. Go and watch it. Coming in at the top of my list is 2003's Memories of Murder, written and directed by Bong Joon-ho and starring Song Kang-ho. This movie is one of the most perfect movies I've ever watched of any type of cinema. This film is, in my opinion, up there alongside Parasite. It's a dark comedy. It's a thriller. It has horror moments. It has performances which are a level beyond 99% of films. Realistic dialogue throughout, funny dialogue throughout, and realistic dialogue throughout. The premise is that in 1986, two detectives are investigating a series of rapes and murders. This is actually based on a real life case in South Korea during the 80s. This film showcases the most amount of police incompetence, and the police themselves are so driven that they make immoral decisions left, right, and center. They're framing people, they're beating people into making admissions. The main character in this is so realistic because he is so flawed. He's not the most intelligent, he's driven, but he also has lazy moments. There are elements where even the women in the police department are not taken seriously, even by the main character, the protagonist. The antagonist is very well acted, very dark and very psychopathic. The visuals in this movie are glorious, so cinematic, long shots, wide shots, every type of shot in this film. Haunting moments, a shot right at the end which is so well done. This film is a must-watch even if you aren't a fan of foreign films or South Korean films. This film is a masterpiece. And I think the story, the direction, the visuals are some of the best I've ever seen. But particularly, I want to draw attention to the performances. They are unbelievably realistic. And the funny moments are just as memorable as the dark moments in this film. Very early on, there is a crime scene, and the forensics team arrive, and they are supposed to be bagging up evidence, and they are essentially slipping on the mud and ruining the crime scene. it shows this deep level of incompetence, and it shows this level of, let's say, people trying to appear like they know what they're doing when they don't. They are posing for photographs in newspapers where they're basically saying they've solved the case and they haven't. And it's just, it has some absurd moments in here. It's so memorable. It's fantastic. If you're a fan of Parasite, it's the same director, it's to the same level of Parasite. So nothing should stop you from watching this film. It's fantastic. It demonstrates all the characteristics I've quoted for Korean cinema, and it does them to a level beyond anything else other than Parasite, in my opinion. Go and watch this film. I've seen it 7, 8 times. I'll probably watch it again after this review.